Hey, Jeffy. Good early morning to you in San Diego. How is it going?
It's going well, Ed. How's it going with you? Hurricane Alley?
Yeah, we're getting ready
Is
for
that what's
that
happening right
that
now?
big ripper that's coming up through Florida, Cat 4. You experienced hurricanes, so you know
We ex- we experienced a rainstorm
it's kind of, this tropical
with a
storm.
little tiny of wind.
You guys you got a little breeze. We'll get a little more than that. But
Yeah,
hey, to be honest, my day got off rough.
it did.
Yeah, which is going to shock everybody when they listen to this because I'm like, Mister, hey, everything's great, everything's good. Ew.
I love the
For
real, man. I
real.
love the
I
real.
had a
Yeah.
crappy night's sleep. Did not sleep well. Kind of tossed and turned. It came
Mm.
up, woke up on the wrong side of the grumpy, and I
Oh,
said,
this episode's going to be great, everybody.
no, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I said,
Yeah.
all right, I got to tune into the big three. So I exercised.
Mm.
So I got up, did my new little, 50-minute bike loop. So, did that
Oh,
out in the
good.
country.
Yeah.
I gratitude journaled, and then
Love
I
it.
squeezed in some meditation for like 15 minutes before the crew that's cleaning our lot out here, showed up. So they kind of popped me out of it.
Man.
So, and I feel a lot better.
Okay, I'm pretty impressed, actually.
Yeah. And I think it kind of,
That's amazing.
I think it kind of leads into this episode, which is
Yeah. Tapping into the power of play.
tapping into the power of play. You want to talk a little bit about the backstory on that?
Sure. So, Ed and I were chatting. We have several ideas that we're thinking about. And yesterday, when we were really digging in, we both are in a rest cycle in work. And that doesn't play in for everybody. Everybody's cycles are at different times and places. But for both Ed and I, we're kind of in a place where it's hot in North Carolina. Kids are going back to school here. There's, interest rate hikes. There's a lot going on. So our market is still steady, but it's very just kind of boop, 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 where normally it's on a full sprint.
Right.
And you're the same.
Yeah, it's the same, and it's at our sales meeting we talked about it. It's across the market. It has slowed up.
Yeah.
We also had a tragedy yesterday or Monday at UNC where there was a shooter loose and
Oh,
and killed a professor. So we had all that ripping through town. So that was terrible. So you've got that cloud on the community. So things are, for a lot of reasons, have tamped down a little bit.
right. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
wow.
sorry to hear
Yeah,
that,
no,
man.
it's
That's
the
shit.
reality of what we deal with. So,
Well, okay. Well, this is a great way to lead into this because life happens. Not that I condone shooting people,
no.
but life happens. And when you can relax into your rest cycle, I believe that it is much more beneficial for your long-term goals, for your year, for your 5 years, for your 10 years, because it allows the body and the mind to have time to reassess, get back into that flow state that we've been talking about, this beautiful space that you can go, hey, it's okay that I'm not running a marathon today. And I like to call it stepping into the river
Yeah.
because, yeah, you step into the river, you got your inner tube, you plop yourself down, and the river's just like, ooh, you're just kind of all over the place. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do a little paddling and you can't do a little kicking and you can't hop off your tube. But what it means is be okay with that today is a little slower, or today's the rest state, or today's the rest cycle. So we're going to talk about a couple things. And one thing I love is we tell us why it matters, Ed.
Yeah. Why it matters is, you're always, as you said, you're going to have slow periods and you're going to have,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have quick periods. And what you want to do is, bring a little joy to what you do when it's slow,
Yes.
and tap into, that playful spirit and bring your clients along with it. So I think
Yeah.
that's really what we want to talk about, is to zoom in and see what the three key points are on how to go about this. And number one
Absolutely.
is know your passion. Know what you're passionate about.
Such a big one.
And we've
That's a big one because I'll bet that if we asked everybody, some people will go, "I absolutely know what my passion is." And I've had like multiple passions in my life, so it's almost like you have to keep checking in on that.
yeah.
Do you know what yours is?
Well, I've got a sense of it, but I think we came up with a fun little exercise we're going to do here,
Yeah.
which opened my
Ugh.
eyes. And so, if you're
Mhm.
struggling with, or even if you aren't struggling with your passion, but you want to get a little bit more insight, take your phone and
Okay,
go,
I got
yeah,
it.
and go to your browser, and then
Yep.
look at the most recent websites you've been hitting to kind of check things out.
Ooh.
And
Okay,
it's gonna be eye opening for you a little bit. So
give me your 5.
so interesting. So the US Open's going on, right? So I had some searches
Yep.
about, when is the US Open final? I wanted to know that. And they talked
Mhm.
about this drink that they make up there in New York. It's called the honey deuce. And I'm like, what the hell is that? So I looked up, what is the honey deuce? And they say it's like the most popular sporting drink ever. I'd never heard of it,
Wow.
but it's like people love it. And I got the ingredients for it. And so now my little mind's like, ooh, I know when the finals coming up and there's this drink, maybe I'm going to have some people over, right? We'll talk more about that. So that's kind of interesting.
That's really cool.
I looked up, I was El Escorial, which is a beautiful place I'd been to a long time ago in Spain. I was having lunch with a client and I was
Mm.
telling her about that. Um,
Mhm.
I've got a blog on some writers that we met, A Dog's Tale Writing the Great Divide. They're still out there.
Mhm.
So I checked that. Um, and then I've got something on bear attacks. So,
We all are gonna have that one weird
yeah.
thing in there.
What do you have? Tell me
Okay.
about yours.
So I have, glass canisters and colors. There's a deeper story to that one, but there's that. There's, floating, which is, heavy saltwater floats in where you float in, with 0 outside noise or anything like that. It's really super deep meditation
Yeah.
stuff. Um, Dr. Esselstyn, he's a cardiologist that's a vegan, totally into him. Marriott, Laguna.
Nice.
Let's see what else. I've got a house in here from where my son lives, grounding therapy, and then my favorite one is Bushman water tanks.
Okay. A broad spectrum. Shocking.
I got a broad
But
spectrum for sure.
but you see there's some
So
themes there, right? And I
yeah.
was looking a little further, like I had wood burning stoves. I was looking at races,
Mhm.
different half marathons, um, different different things around adventure. So it's kind of interesting. Oh, Argentinian grills. I had that too. So,
Yeah, I think it's really a neat way to, and obviously you're something pops up when you're reading and you Google something or whatever, but still that's something that you're interested in. So it's kind of neat to make that eclectic list. And then what do you do with that list, Ed? I don't know. Do you just go, oh, these are my things that I'm
well,
into?
I think you look for themes to say, like, hey, well,
Okay.
if these are like things I've kind of for fun looked at,
Right.
and for me, and I reflected on this. I'm very, very passionate about adventure and backcountry, high
Yeah.
adventure. That's my thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, for my purpose, and we're going to do some episodes on that down the line, I want to make sure I'm tapping into that.
Mhm.
And for you, Jeffy,
Well, I mean, mine all tends to be around vegetarian and vegan eating, gardening, water capture, Reiki, meditation.
yeah,
I mean, that's kind of my wheelhouse, and you can tell that by the stuff that I'm browsing.
yeah,
And I thought about it. I thought about it yesterday after we met to do our pod prep, and it's kind of cool. I would love to hear what other people have in there. I mean, I'm sure there's people that have stuff that's all over the board, but I can imagine my son doing it and him having everything to do with diesel engines in there, like every single thing you can imagine, because that's what he's into and he's passionate
yeah.
about. So
We should check
yeah,
in with
it's a
our
really cool
kids.
exercise.
We should
Yeah,
check
we
in with our
should check
kids and
in.
ask them on that. I'd love to do that. It's funny.
Yeah.
I got into like chopping wood, splitting wood, and I was like watching YouTube videos on axes. It's like, Lynn's like, hey, what's going on over there?
Axe murderer.
So,
5-acre axe
5-acre
murderer.
axe murderer. So anyway, that's so one, like figure out what your passion is, and then
Yeah.
I think number 2, what were your thoughts on that?
So it's like spending time in support of that passion. And when you're in a rest cycle, you can really lean into those things and you can do things that are filling you up for your next run cycle. So the beautiful thing on this is that you can bring your clients on this journey with you.
100%.
That's yes, that is how if you really look at the things, and you don't have to, take your clients on a high adventure 7,000-foot climb uh, mountain bike ride, right? That doesn't have to be that. But you could teach them about gear, or teach them to go do a slideshow of your trip and talk about what you learned. Or, I mean, there's a million things, and I'm putting words in your mouth and I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but for me, I would invite people over to learn how to compost. I do a ton of composting and I've learned a lot about it. And I have a lot of clients who are into gardening, and you don't ever have to buy any dirt ever. I never buy dirt.
That's awesome.
All my dirt is here because I create it. And I've learned a lot in the last 20 years on what works best. So that's a great thing. I'm also Ollie, my big, fat, lovely, mushy dog that I love so much, like going on a walk with him or going to a dog park, having a dog event. I have a really good agent in San Diego who does dog rescue. And so she does a lot of events around that. And those are things that fill her up. She's in the river while she's doing that, right? Using that kind of thing. So, but what about you? Can you think about something that's passionate to you that you could apply into your clients?
Yeah, well, definitely the cycling piece is there. And, we've got a group getting together on Thursday evenings where there's a in-town spot that we can mountain bike. There's, I think 13 miles of trails. And so we'll do that and then have beers in the parking lot afterwards. So it's a standing ride.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you can't ride and you're around, you just show up in the parking lot and have a beer with everybody, right? And hang out. So you show up however you can. And it's a no drop ride. So it's like, we try to bring newcomers into it as much as we can. And then we're going to be doing our mountain bike training camp, right? So this is kind of something that we've talked about before. But I was thinking about what you were saying, for different ways to do this. And it doesn't have to be around actually getting out and doing it. It's like, hey, are you interested in going on hiking part of the AT this fall? Come on down to this brewery. I've spent hundreds of miles on the AT. So, and I've got maps, and it's like, hey, this is how you do it. Here's a pack list. Have some other people have done sections. This is a great intro section. If you want to do it out and back, a loop, if you spur off, like depending on your level, beginning, intermediate, or advanced, you're probably there helping give the presentation or discussion. I think that's a great one, right? For a little pop-up. So, and the composting, I love that. I love that idea.
The composting.
Yeah, I do.
It's really cool. And it's not even, I could bring people over here. Sorry. I could bring people over and show them how to do it. Or I could even do I could do a Zoom call on it and say, here's the protocol of it. Here's what works in San Diego, because, our temperatures are a little different. There's just so many things to do. As a matter of fact, this is so funny. In the composting thing, we had a big party over here in last year for my birthday. And these clients that we have that are city livers, they were walking around the yard and they're like, what's that? Well, that's my compost. And they're all, I thought compost was stinky. Well, no, it smells like earth.
Yeah.
And they could not grasp that concept because they'd never been around it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's getting people interested or exposing them to things that you're interested in. And it's amazing what kind of little micro groups you can create.
I love that.
You got your cycling group. Yeah, me too. And it's fun. And wouldn't it be rad if that kind of triggered somebody within our group to do something they're passionate about, and then you get invited to their passion thing, and then you learn something new? I don't know. It's a way of connecting with people. And we're so out of that practice.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I'm loving the, take a hike type, thing. I'm,
Yeah.
beginning, and intermediate loops and have people come. And it's like, we used to do the light is right in scouts. It's like, bring the pack, show this is all the gear, here's the list. Here's what you need to get. That can be really, really fun. And speaking of fun, I think, the third point on this is make it fun. Don't take yourself too seriously in it. And, if you be Bill Murray in Stripes, lighten up, Francis. It's like, be the fun leader who just made basic training fun, right? So.
Yeah, it is true. I think that a lot of times and there's every type of personality, right? So there's people who are going to be varying degrees of letting things just kind of roll. But it is beautiful to just be playful.
Yeah.
And what's so funny, this is so off the cuff, but I was riding my bike last Saturday and I looked at my girlfriend and I feel when I ride my bike like I'm 12.
Yes.
Like the wind is in my face and I can see the ocean and I'm pedaling hard and I don't, there's no time frame. There's nothing. And it really, I feel like it brings youth back into your cells of your body. So imagine applying these things with a joyful attitude and how that will just make you come alive.
Yeah, I so agree with that.
Really gorgeous.
And
yeah.
It's you want to be playful in the experience, like playful learning if you're teaching somebody or bringing them into it, rather than rote learning. And I'll give you some examples of that.
Yeah, let's hear that.
So rote learning would be learning to play the piano and practicing your scales over and over and over again, right? Practice deep, it's like 10,000 hours deep practice, right? Yeah. And that's effective, but that's not very playful. And that's kind of what drives a lot of kids away from musical instruments, is like that rote learning. And I know, like my daughter, she's really into piano, but she dropped lessons long ago and she just likes to play. She just gets on there and plays with piano and does that, and has a keyboard up in DC in her apartment. And, that's just her passion, right? Beautiful.
Right.
But rote learning didn't work for her. An example of playful learning that I experienced was we got coaching for mountain biking a couple years ago. I've talked about that when we got into it. And, you're learning a lot of things and technique, and there's some, concentration in that. And then we got up to our kind of starting point, and the guy got sticks and he did a big circle. And then he put us all in the circle. And then he said, okay, now we're going to play foot down. And we're like, what's foot down? And he said, you got to stay within the circle and you can't put a foot down. And you ride slowly and you're dodging everybody on your bike and you're trying to force people out of the circle to knock them out or get in their way to make them put a foot down. And you're on grass, right? This is like in a grassy area. And so all of a sudden you've got all these 50 to 60-year-old dudes like moving their bikes around and, jumping it around to try and knock the guy to make him put his foot down. We were laughing so hard. But what that was teaching us was handling skills, right?
Right.
And how slow you can move your bike and how you can accelerate and how do you do this and picking lines. That was what that was all about. And we learned like that because we were having fun doing it.
Yeah, that's an incredible example.
So
that's a really great example.
I thought it was really cool. And when you were talking about composting, it's like, well, think about how you make that fun rather than like, these are the 8 principles of composting. Rather than like bringing all the shit out and then like you're loading it in and like you're going to get the worms, you make it fun. Like why worms are good. You have to have the mixture of dry and moist and how that works and time.
Yes.
And if you're actually playing a game around it, maybe a little competition in there, that's a very different experience.
It is. It is a totally different experience. And yours sounded way more fun than mine, but
well, you can make it fun. You make muddy drinks, So.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we have a couple of ideas in here for create and play with your community. Um, and these are obviously just things that we're just throwing out because sometimes people go, "Well, that all sounds great, you guys, but where can I start?" And one of the things that came to mind was a book club. And
Right.
now, book club reimagined, though, right? So you maybe choose a book on something that you're highly interested in. So if you're interested in hiking the Appalachian Trail, then you get some books on the Appalachian Trail. Then you guys read the book, and then you get together and do a packing list and whatever. Is that that's kind of where my brain was going with that? What about
Yeah,
yours?
same thing. Like if you had a book club, we'll choose the book and then maybe be a little more thematic about it. So you mentioned
Hmm.
if it was hiking, well, there's a walk in the woods, Bill Bryson, hiking the AT.
Yeah.
So now you could
Yeah.
have trail mix as your appetizer. Your drinks could be
Hmm.
your food could be freeze dried stuff that you have. You know, you could your drinks you could filter your water for the drinks. You
Yeah.
can do all this stuff.
Yes.
You can bring these elements in
Funny.
as well as the
Yeah.
funny things that happen in that book. You could kind of have these things rather than just sitting around and talk. I haven't done many book clubs, but the ones I've heard about, they usually don't talk about the book. It's usually about just a reason to get together. So, so you might want to have support. Know that's going to happen. So support some of that along the way with things that
Yeah.
are in the book.
Do you know, I love how your brain works. So you've done this twice in the podcast. I don't even know if you know you've done it. So you're looking at the open, you look up the drink. You're always creating a theme party.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because my brain doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm into it. I love when I go on vacation, this is the only thing I have planned is where I'm sleeping. And everything else is just unfolds, right? And sometimes that's a bummer because when I'm getting on the plane, I went, "Oh, I missed that. I didn't even know that was there because I didn't do that part." And I think because I'm such an Uber planner at in my personal life, I like to let other things go organically
Yeah.
around, that happen. But when you're talking about this whole thing about having the trail mix, and that is so cool. I'm gonna take a leaf out of your book.
Okay.
That was a pun.
Boom.
And do that extra step. So
Yeah.
thanks for the motivation,
Sure. Well,
mister.
my brain is a scary, scary place. So
I can tell you that is true.
well, anyway,
Anyway,
yeah, I hope that inspires everybody to be a little
me
more
too.
playful in this rest season that many of us are in. Use
Yeah.
it as a reason to reach out to your clients, but maybe more importantly to tap into what you're passionate about and explore
Yeah.
that and lighten up, Francis.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you. Talk
See you
soon.
next time.